Welcome to Epic Stage Journeys and Then Some. And now, here's your host, Gavin.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope everybody had a great Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, all that good stuff. We are back. I took some time off. We lost a good friend a few weeks ago, and everybody was just kind of really down and out about it. But again, I just want to send my best out to Luann Price, and we're sorry that we've lost Morris, but it's one of those things. But we'll see him again. I know that, but I had to bring this knucklehead back again. He's sitting out in his garage. I think he's working on his Volkswagen or something. So the Mr. Eric Love out there in the garage smoking. And
Gavin, you got to be comfortable, and my wife won't let me smoke in the house, so I like sitting in my car, and this is perfect for today.
I'd like to see her come in and catch you smoking in the house. She might whip your ass.
I tell you what, there's probably some guys and gals out there that got a wife that, you know right what you can and can't do without them saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
The quiet ones are the dangerous ones, man. I got a German, so it's real dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I asked you that one time. I said, when you guys talk, you sound like you're angry all the time when they're speaking in German. It was just,
it's an ugly language.
It's love her to death. She's little though. She'll whip your ass. She'd be on you like a spider monkey. You wouldn't know what. You wouldn't know.
Why do you think I'm in the garage?
Exactly.
That's it. What are we talking about today?
We're going. I think we're going to the dark side this time. We've been goofing off a lot here lately, but we're gonna go dark on this one. Okay. And I'll explain. Well, I don't know. How do we want to start this?
You want me to explain it that way?
Yeah, why don't you explain it? Because
so back in the 1900s, Gavin and I worked together. I was a sheriff's patrol sergeant in Tarrant County. And Gavin managed the most popular bar in Arlington called Cowboys. And one night, Gavin came to me and said, man, I think I know something that I don't want to get in trouble for knowing. I think that's how that came up. I said, well, hang on a minute. Now, remember, that's before the iPhone, right? That was
before any of that shit. Yeah,
I was barely getting a text back then. When I got a text, I said, what is this?
Everybody had their pagers back then. You didn't.
Yeah, and you and I were good friends. And I were good friends, and we trusted each other. And I hauled all the money out and waiting for the for the pickup every night. So we had a great mutual trust. And I went and put a pocket recorder, which you didn't know at the time. You did not know that I put a pocket recorder in.
You snake.
And well, it might be sneaky, but you know what? It also protected you. I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and I do appreciate that. I do.
Because I could have done two things. I could have just destroyed it afterwards. There's no evidence of what we talked about. Or I could have did what I did and went through the chain with it. I wanted to protect you to make sure that just by your knowledge of what we discussed that night, that you were not complicit to a crime.
Yeah. Okay. Could that if that was not recorded in any of that thing, I could have been considered an accessory to that, couldn't I?
You could. Yeah, that's why I love you, man. And I didn't want you. I thought, man, this guy's just dumb enough to fall for something. But I didn't want you to have any legal issues. So I did that really to protect you. And what we discussed was at one time Gavin had dated a woman back in the 90s, and her father turned up deceased, and the actual crime took place in Bedford, Texas. And what Gavin told me that night, I took in, listened to the audio after we talked for about 45 minutes, and I went and pulled the case file at the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office, and everything you told me lined up. And I said, holy shit, at that time, that would have been a good cold case. A good cold case that could have been solved within about 10 years. So I take it, I run it to the sheriff then, and boy, everybody's working on it. Okay. So you got to understand that this is a multi-jurisdictional case. Here's what happened. There was a guy named Joe Johnson. Now, back in the old days, he was a gambler, professional gambler, and he went all over Las Vegas. They lived in Bedford. I went to school with the daughter that Gavin had dated at one time. So I knew this person. Her name was Julie. And here's what's crazy about this. The investigation shows exactly what Gavin had told me to kind of put it together so we don't talk a long time about nothing. Uh, the father became very indebted to some bookies and other folks in Las Vegas and New York and New Jersey. And when he could not pay for those debts, in the old days, remember, they didn't have text and Google and all this stuff. They sent pictures of you doing some horrible things to everybody, embarrassed his family. He was admonished from the house. The wife made him leave. And this specific time came up where the mother reached out and told Joe to come to the house. They were going to try to make amends. That was the guise or the lure of it. So he comes back to the house. And what I forgot to tell you was mom and dad are swingers. They've got multiple sex partners. And the mother had two of the boyfriends there. And of course, the daughter was there. That's what's crazy. So the daughter, the mother, and two lovers are at the house. Joe shows up, comes in the house, and boy, they start tuning this guy up. The two boyfriends just really start tuning Joe up with
So there
baseball.
was two of them then. I thought there was
two.
only one. Oh, okay.
No, there's two. There's
Oh,
two.
there was, okay.
And more people, more fun, I guess. I don't know. They start tuning him up, and boy, he's beat almost to a pulp. And I don't know if you remember. Well, why don't you just pick it up from there? He's almost beat to a pulp, and what does he say, Joe?
I think what he did was from what I know and what I heard and everything, he ended up in the bathroom.
Yep.
And he was down on the ground, and he was literally crying, and he was asking them, why are you doing this to me? And then the next thing that happened was, well, I think that they had already used the baseball bat on him enough to where they had got him pretty much in submission. And when he was on the ground and he was crying and he was begging them, why are you doing this to me? He was shot in the forehead.
Yep.
And he died.
From his own family member. We'll say that. Okay.
Yep.
Now, from that point, he's wrapped in blankets, thrown into a vehicle in the garage, and driven out to a remote area that's now well populated because so much time has went by.
Mm-hmm.
Hazlitt, he was put on the railroad tracks, wrapped up, and set on fire. Now, I think we can all agree that no one deserves to die like that. Okay.
No,
no one deserves that. Did he cause his family some embarrassment? I saw the photos that were sent out, and they were pretty horrible. Okay.
Wasn't he kind of a sexual deviant of some sort, or he was?
Man, listen. Yeah. So here's what's crazy. So these photos that they're in the Tarrant. Remember, this case has not been solved even after all this time. And I'm going to tell you why, because that's even more crazy. So I start looking at all these pictures that have been sent out to all. I mean, when I say everybody, neighbors, family members, they send it to everybody. The dark side of the world, especially at that time, the way they operated, they would send to anybody in your circle, and they'd send it in the mail. And these pictures had Joe doing very deviant acts on other men. Very clearly, it was Joe because it's very close-up pictures. At one point, one set of pictures had him like a fake, dressed up like a woman with fake breasts. Obviously, you can tell it's Joe, and he is in a very precarious position. Let's just say that. So, the family was very, very embarrassed by this. Certainly did not garner what happened to his demise. When I took those audio tapes down, man, I thought it was a slam dunk home run. Okay. And over the years, I know that you've had a couple of different investigators come and talk to you, correct?
Well, the first time after it all, you and I visited about everything, and then the first time that I got contacted by an investigator, I had to go to the sheriff's department
Right.
and meet with them. I did that twice. I did that one time, and then maybe a month went by, and they called me back in again.
His name was Mike Utley. He was a great guy. He's passed away, years back, but he's a
Mhm.
great guy. But he passed away. And remember around the 2011 mark, the district attorney investigator that contacted you?
Mhm.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what's crazy. People say, why didn't this case get solved? Because you have a capital murder case. That's the highest degree of, that's the highest charge that you can get in the state of Texas, capital murder. Okay. That also involved an arson that was part of the capital murder. Okay. So the Bedford Police Department not only holds the arson charge, they also hold the capital murder charge, but they never did anything with it. Let me tell you why. Here's what's crazy. Remember when I said the mother had sexual intercourse with every investigator? I mean, it was mind blowing. I couldn't believe it. Now, as we started going down, okay, this guy, he's passed away. All these, everybody's dead from from this particular crime, except the person that pulled the trigger. I think that'd
Mhm.
be a safe thing to say, right?
Right. Yeah.
I've told you, everybody is deceased. Everybody is done except the person that pulled the trigger. The person that pulled the trigger, they're living a pretty normal life, from what I understand. The house that it happened in, it's in a very now I won't say prominent. It's just a house, okay, but it's in a very clear area of Bedford. That house has since been rebuilt. People live in that house. They have no idea that that ever even happened there.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when we talk about justice, what does justice look like? It's frustrating because when you realize all these guys that investigated this, now I'm not saying every one, but boy, we know that the ones from the sheriff's department, there was a big group of them back in the day. Because remember, the body was found out in the county.
Yeah.
So they picked up on the case. What makes me frustrated about the case, and I've dropped some hints to the Bedford Police Department Chief Bobby LaPenta that we are going to start doing some filming on that particular cold case. They have been pretty active. And I'll tell you, I'm going to say it right now. I think Chief LaPena from the Bedford Police Department is a great human being. He's been there a very long time. He was not there during that time, but he's a guy that started at the bottom, worked his way to the top. But I think this is a case that's going to need some attention, because I think that if they ever do make the arrest, I think it'll be one of those things, because the lieutenant over at the Bedford Fire Department, he and I became very good friends. He's on my Facebook, Joey Langford, and he knows that evidence like the back of his hand. I don't know why that has not gained more traction over the years, other than I think it would be absolute embarrassment when they start figuring out who slept with who, because literally the mother that's involved, that her husband was deceased and she was there when the murder happened, it was all at the family's hands. I think that would be so much embarrassment for not only the Bedford Police Department, but certainly the Tarrant County Sheriff's Department, because Mama was the cookie jar.
That was one thing I never really understood, was that these guys they're actively investigating this, and yet Mama's going around banging everybody, and it's
All
like,
of them.
and it's like, did these guys not, or was it just she must have been a good piece of ass or something, because I mean, to get those many people that she got to,
Well, listen, not all cops are handsome, okay? Now, I was the exception.
yeah, you were the exception, of course, yeah.
Back then, listen, some of these guys were fucking geeks. If you like, I knew some of these guys because they were the old guys going out when we were coming in. Like, man, these guys, they're not, let's just say they're not lookers, okay? And something's going to get thrown their way. I think that they're taking it. And I do, in my heart, hope law enforcement has changed over the years. I think it's changed a little bit for the better. And on the flip side of that, I think it's just as fucked up as it was, because there's no reason this case should not have been prosecuted. And it was never taken before a grand jury. It was never nothing. And the audio tape conversation you and I had, this person wanted you to know something after y'all consumed some stuff. So, that's a truth serum.
Well,
You know?
yeah, it was so weird because it was we everybody had gone out for some reason and everybody was drinking everything, and I remember that I wasn't a big drinker anyway, but I wasn't drinking that much that night, and the other person was the one that got hammered, and
Yeah.
we went home and got in bed, and she was always weird during the holidays. And all I knew about any of this was that I was told that her father had died from a heart attack, and that's what she told me, and so that's what I went with. That's all. I wasn't any reason. There was no reason for me to question any of it. But I just always remember she'd get weird during the holidays, and I figured it was because of her father. It was a tragic heart attack that she said it just came out of nowhere. It happened and yada yada. And so we get home that one night and we're laying there in bed and she's having one of those moments again. And so I asked her, what is, and so, and just out of nowhere, when as a police officer, you've probably seen this a million times, when you're talking to somebody and all of a sudden they just kind of go blank.
Yes.
And it's just like they become something else. And it was like that. It was like I was talking to somebody completely different all of a sudden. And it was the first confession was, well, my dad didn't really die from a heart attack, and he was tragically murdered, and all this and all that. And I'm like going, wait, holy shit, what are we talking about here? And then it just went on, how it happened, where
Pretty good
everybody went.
detail.
It was very detailed. I mean, it was very detailed. And I mean, it was the mention of the weapons and just, where he was taken, where he was shot, where this, and this. And
even who shot him.
exactly. But we didn't get to that point yet. And then, so she kept on and kept on. And then I finally just, out of nowhere, I just went, wait a minute. And I said, did you pull the trigger? And it was, she would just, and it just laid there real quiet, and I kept pushing it. I said, did you pull the trigger? Did you shoot him? And I pushed it. And because I was started dicking around with this thing. And finally she went, yeah, I did. And I said, where? And where did you do it? And she told me exactly where it was. It was up in his forehead. And so I thought, how when you go home and you get in bed at night and you're drunk and the room spins, and you sleep with one foot on the floor, you keep the room from spinning. Well, that's how I slept that night. Well, I didn't even sleep really. I laid there on the bed, but I had one foot on the floor and I had one eye open.
Yeah, I'd be scared. I would.
Yeah, no shit, I was. And I'm thinking, this person has just dumped just a bucket load of crap on me. And I'm going, what the hell? And so, I carried that around for a little while, not long, and then when you and I were at breakfast that one night, and I thought, I got to talk to somebody about this. And I figured you'd be the best one to talk to, you being an officer and everything, you might be able to give me some input or some insight or anything. And then you told me you recorded me. And at first I went, oh, you asked, you didn't have to do that. But then after we talked a little later on about it, and I had to say, I couldn't thank you enough for doing that, because you really kind of kept me out of the mix, because like I said, I could have been walking around knowing all this, and they could have come back at me and said I was an accessory to all that. And I'm like, but And then when I sat and I visited with the investigators and I told them the entire story from weapons to this, to this, to this, to this, to this. And when we all got done, they go, well, we know you're telling the truth. And I said, really, how's that? And they pulled that folder out and they started pulling pictures out. There's the baseball bat that was used. It was the exact same color I told them it was. Here's this. Here's this. Here's this. And I'm going, shit. And then they go, now you're not like, you don't have a weak stomach or anything, or, you know. And I said, no, I'm not. And so they go, okay, we're going to get into the pictures. And they showed me where they found the body. They showed me the burn spot where they had set him on fire. And then they showed me where the bullet hole was.
Yeah.
In his skull. And that's when I looked at it and I said, when I saw that, and I said, all of a sudden I went, this shit became very real very fast. And I'm going, this was not just some drunken person just babbling about just, you know, whatever they could make up. I mean,
he cleansed her soul to you that night.
It basically, yes,
Yeah.
Pretty much did. And I just was like, you know, what the hell? And it was, yeah, of course, that ended that, because it's like, oh, it's okay. She'll change. She'll be fine. I was like, well, get me the hell out of this shit. I don't know.
That'd be the nicest breakup I ever broke up. Oh, listen, honey, I've got a lot of problems. I'm the problem in this situation.
Yeah, I'm the problem. It's
I don't want
not
to be
you,
victim
it's
number,
me.
whatever.
No shit. It's not you, it's me. Really, it's me. It's me.
But you know what, Gavin? Here's something good for people that see this, especially if someone tries to cleanse their soul with you. You can't get in trouble as long as you share it with someone. Okay. And I'm going to tell you who you got to have good friends in your life. You got to have an attorney, or you got to have someone in some capacity. Let me say that. Okay. Judicial capacity that you can say, hey, just like you did to me. Now, in the moment, I thought, I'm going to have to explain this to Gavin at some point. I'll cross that bridge whenever I have to cross it, as far as recording you. I did that to absolutely 100% protect you. And, you know, as we talked that morning at breakfast, I said, listen, don't be pissed. This is fucking insurance policy for you. And that's the way you have to look at it. It's an absolute insurance policy. And when I talked to the investigators before we did anything, I said, I've got some recordings, want you to listen to it. You got to give me your word you don't target this guy. Bringing something to light. And I had a good enough position at that time. I was a patrol sergeant. I had a good enough position, a position of trust, where they absolutely honored that. As that investigator that I spoke of a while ago, you know, even before he passed away, someone was always stopping him when he would take off on something. Okay. His name was Mike Utley. And someone was always stopping him, and we couldn't figure it out. He couldn't figure it out either. Someone was always stopping him from moving on that case. Well, we kind of figured out that the person trying to stop him was very close to one of the other investigators that had dude with the mom. Okay. He's gone now. He's, you know, everybody investigation wise is deceased that worked on this in the beginning. What's crazy about it is all these years later, okay, that was in the late 80s when that particular murder happened.
Mm-hmm.
All these years later, there have been no steps. So I have told Chief LaPenta, Bedford PD, and they made some pretty great arrests recently on some stuff from the 80s, cold case. And I have urged him to please look at this case, because when we start filming on that, and I know we've talked about that, but it's definitely going to happen in 2026. It's literally a mile from my house where I live now. That's going to bring some stuff to light, and it'll be negative, because law enforcement, for the average person looking at law enforcement, if they've had a bad experience with them, oh, they're just covering up for everybody. Everybody's dead. There's nobody to cover up for anymore. They can have shame on the badge from whoever in their department from the old days that did something, but there's nobody left except the person that pulled the trigger. Nobody left. It needs to at least go to the grand jury. It needs the person needs to be arrested and convicted, but it needs to go to a grand jury.
Well, I can honestly say that they screwed up their 48-hour window there because because it's been over 30 years now, and I'm like going, and I thought, you and I over the years we would just discuss every once in a while, hey, anything ever happened with any of that? And you nope, that day's thing yet. And I even had that one investigator came out here to the house. He drove all the way over here to meet with me, and he was
that was the DA investigator.
Yeah, and I gave him, I said, look, I'll try to be as on point as I can because it's been a long time since we even talked about it. But I can still talk about the damn thing like I heard it yesterday. It's weird that, you go, and there's some days when you would think that did that really happen? It's you go back and you go, did it really happen? And and it's like,
so let me ask you a question. When they showed you those photos, now remember, I've already seen all that, way back. And I would listen to the audio and I would stop it and I would look at the pictures. I'm like, man, everything is 100% lined up. When you looked at it, what was your initial feeling?
When I saw him, because you play it in your mind, like at first you play it in your mind like, well, we were out drinking, doing, and she's drunk and, she's just babbling about some shit she's made up or something. And then when I met with the investigators and they started pulling out pictures and stuff, that's when it hit, I went, this is real.
Yeah.
Because, at first it was, it was it was kind of freaky that, she said all that. And I thought, God, please, hopefully she's just messing with me. But, it's still, it was like, she just went blank and you're like going, what the hell's going on? And then, but when the investigators started pulling all the pictures out and we started talking about the story and how everything went and the timelines and everything, and I knew it to a T. I gave them everything. And they even came back and they said, well, we know you're not lying, and started showing me the pictures of everything. And I went, no, I'm not lying.
You know that meme that goes around on social media? It says, let me tell you how I got in this position. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me tell you how I got this predicament. I think about that a lot because there are a ton of unsolved cases. Okay, tons. In this day and age, with everything that's accessible, especially to law enforcement, this case should have been done back in the 90s when me and you had the conversation. The murder happened in the 80s, late 80s. We had the conversation like the we had the conversation about 93, I think. 94?
Probably about 94, because
I think
Cowboys
94.
Cowboys opened in 94, that summer of 94.
Yeah, I think it was then.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I remember that clearly, and I've written about this in something that at some point I'm going to publish, but it talks about having trust with someone. And the trust, whether it's a situation like that, you've got to have people. You've got to have people that you can trust as a human. You've got to have people that you can trust. You don't trust everybody. I'll tell you that. Don't do that.
No.
You'll have a lot of problems. Have someone you trust. Make sure that, they're not going to be the, town squire and go tell your business, but they also need to protect you. And that's kind of what that whole thing was. I liked you just enough. You know what I'm saying? And I trusted you just enough. I said, I can't let this guy ever come up with, he's an accomplice, he's an accessory because he knows about it and he never told nobody. And then let's say something happened and Julie got arrested at some point. And she said, well, I told Gavan about that, 28 years ago. Uh-oh, Gavan, why didn't you tell somebody? You did. But there's proof of that. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And it was just, I carried that around for a long time. And for several years. And because, I mean,
It's a lot.
she and I went out back in the early 90s when I had just come back from Houston. And I think that's back where you and I met as well, was out at Rock and Rodeo out there in Fort Worth. And that's kind of how she and I met, because she worked there as well as I did, and we met and kind of hooked up then. But it was just I don't.
So I'm going to tell you something. I knew her I knew her as a friend. I knew her as a person that she was a nice girl. Everybody liked Julie. Nice girl. Okay. I'd been to her house a couple of times when I was in high school. We were absolutely just friends. Okay. Um, I think what's crazy about it to me is she worked at a Mexican restaurant at one time, not far from her house. And like me and my girlfriend went down there and ate. She waited on us. Okay. And, we were children, we were young adults back then, still in high school. And then, I haven't seen her all these years. And that night that, me and you became friends over in Fort Worth, your girlfriend shows up and I'm thinking, holy shit, hey, Julie, how you doing? High five. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a person that you knew in high school. And, of course I was a sheriff's sergeant then. And, me and my other single guys were out looking for ugly women because that was our specialty to attract. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's so crazy how friendship in high school, you see them, 10 years later, whatever, 8 years later, whatever, and you have a nice visit. Oh, she's dating my friend, she's dating my friend Gavin. Okay, cool. And then for that story to populate, because you got to remember, I already knew about it. Knew about the murder, but I didn't think nothing about it, I didn't think anything about it, other than I knew he had Las Vegas ties. And you start owing the mob money, it's a different ball game. It's out of a lot of people's hands.
Oh,
But
yeah.
as you started telling me that story that night, man, I literally just would think back about how does a person go from a trigger person to the nice girl that would, be my friend in high school. She waited on me and one of my girlfriends a couple of times. We were friends. She would come by the grocery store I worked at. How do you go from being that person to a trigger person?
I think the way that it kind of came across to me that they were all, it was very drug induced. I think they were all pretty much jacked up when they went over there, is the way she went. And I found that something years later. She was I guess you could say she was an Afrin junkie. She was always having sinus issues. And I was at that point, I was at a time in my life that I had been clean for a while. I'd just moved back from Houston. My bonus dad had a stroke, and I came home to be closer to my mother and help her and stuff. And so, but it was, she was a total Afrin junkie, and I didn't think anything about it. She just had bad sinuses. But, I look back on it now, we back on ourselves now, we look at it and say, yeah, if you had Afrin on you, you knew what was up.
Yeah, you had something in the Afrin.
Yeah. But there was a girl that we worked with, she was a bartender, and this girl I worked with, I think she was at Borrowed Money. And her and Julie were friends. Actually, she worked, I think no, I don't think she did. I met her over at Borrowed Money, and that other person we've been talking about, she ended up working over there as well. And then they had moved me out of there, and they'd already taken me to Cowboys. And so but I ran into the other girl, the bartender, one night, and we were talking, and she said, and she didn't know anything about it, because I didn't talk to anybody about this. Nobody knew about it. You're the only person I really sat and talked to about this.
That's smart on your part. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to start telling people about this, because I had no idea what was real and what wasn't. But I was talking to this other girl one night, and the issue never came up. I said something about her and her Afrin issues, because we weren't even going out. We'd been split up for a few years after that. And she said, well, I got something to tell you about that. And I said, okay, what? Well, what she would do is she would take that bottle of Afrin and she'd put meth in it, and then she'd put water in it and mix it up. and
Mhm.
and then she'd shoot it up her nose, and so that's how she was doing her meth. And I went, "Well, that's kinda disgusting," but, and I said, "Makes sense now."
Yeah.
She was always, get up and go and go and do stuff, and she was always very athletic anyway. I mean, I think she had a black belt in karate. I mean, she was no slouch as far as physical in any kind of physical attribute. And so I just kind of pawned it off, but then she told me about that, and I said, okay, now it makes sense why all this was going on.
Yeah.
That she had to have that all the time. And I thought, what in the hell? How the hell did I miss all this? Is
How the
what
hell did I get here?
How did I get exactly? It's like I
I
got
mean,
here,
yeah.
and how the hell did I miss all this?
Yeah.
And I felt like I said, I was like, "You putz." I said, "You should have known right off from the get-go what was going on." And
It
I
sounds
just
like you should have it sounds like you should have applied to be a investigator at the sheriff's department because, at that moment, I think all those guys realize, "Uh-oh, I've been in the cookie jar now. I'm complicit to this crime." Because all of those guys would have been charged, every one of them,
would they? I mean,
including an
and to me,
investigation.
I don't even know what her mother I never met her mother. I didn't know what she looked like. I mean, I saw what was left of her father. I saw pictures of what was left of him, but I mean, I don't even think I saw a picture of her mother.
Well, so I tell you, back in the day, if I got off at the grocery store and a bunch of us friends would hang out, I'd go over there. I've been over there at that house a couple of times, and I always thought it was weird. And that's kind of like, how did I get here? Think about this. The mom had a bathing suit on a lot. Well, I didn't know anything about swinging back then. If I did, I might have got lucky. I don't know. But like,
You'd have
and
been in the middle of it.
her mom was attractive. Her mom was attractive. But I always said, man, her mom wears a lot of bathing suit. That was my takeaway when I get my little shitty car and barely make it home from leaving there. I'm like, lady wears a lot of bathing suits, very skimpy clothes. Well, then you later learn out that, she's a fucking swinger. Very weird lifestyle.
Yeah, after, from talking to you and the investigators and everything, and they started telling me about the lifestyle and everything that they lived, and I was like,
Oh, boy.
God almighty. I said, no wonder she's all jacked up in the head from all that
Yeah.
crap that she had to put up with. But I just, it was just, it was surreal. I mean, it was,
It's a fucking movie, man. I
it
mean,
was, it really was. And I thought, oh my God, what, but and to this day, I still haven't talked to many people about it. I mean, I think you and I have spoke more about it than anybody else, but, I think, my mother stopped by the other day and we were talking about something and her name came up and I don't know why it came up. Oh, we were just talking about old girlfriends or something and her name came up and I said, yeah, and I had to get out of that. She was kind of not good and then she asked me, she goes, "Well, what was the deal with her?" And I kinda told her and I said and she's like, "Do what?" And I said, "I never told you about this?" And she said, "Oh, no." She goes, "I don't know anything about it." And I said, "Okay, well," and I kinda gave her the short, the abbreviated rundown of the whole thing.
yeah,
And, she said she goes and of course she goes, "Well, you know how to pick them." And I said, "Well, yeah, I guess I do." Because I mean, I can go back down the list of a lot of old girlfriends that I would probably if I could go back in time, I would shake myself and smack myself upside the head and
yeah.
say, "No, dude, don't do that. That's
You know,
not
the
the
one
right one."
the one thing I did learn in life, I think, especially looking back, is I think there should have been, some maybe different actions taken by myself in different situations that I didn't take. And, I think everybody has that in life. And I often wonder, because I know Julie knows that I've snooped around on this. I've been told, she's quite aware that I've tried to bring this thing to light a little bit, or, and this person doesn't know her very well. That this person, it's a woman. She said He knows. He knows that you worked at the sheriff's office, that you looked into it, and I understand that she doesn't live too far anymore. Before she had moved to a different location, let some time go by. All the places, like, it's so weird when you look at the investigative file, all of the locations where they would meet and stay even after the fact, those locations are gone now. Like, there used to be a motel called the Belton Inn. Now there's a QT and Whataburger there. Okay. And that's where some of the folks stayed even after the murder. But with everybody gone, everybody's gone but Julie. And we know that the Bedford Fire Department, I've seen what they have on their arson, because after, we really didn't talk about that after, they killed him in the bathtub. They set the house on fire and went to Hazlet. So we did leave that out.
Oh, I forgot.
And
I did forget about the house fire too. I
yeah,
did forget to mention that, but I did know about that because
yeah,
that was brought up
yeah.
about that too.
And
And
Bedford has a lot of evidence on it. Joey Langford, he knows that evidence like the back of his hand, and he is since retired. He's still alive, but it's just it's frustrating. Why did this case not get the attention it needed? And then you look at the mother, now deceased. She slept with every investigator from the sheriff's department. It looks like it's crazy. You can't make this is like one of those Hallmark movies, like that are crazy woman movie.
yep,
That's what it's like.
it
Very
is
weird.
it's like those ones that my wife sits around and watches all the time, LMN and
Oh yeah.
all that bullshit, and I'm not going. And I said, you're just watching that so you can figure out ways to bump me off and and get caught doing it. And she just kind of laughs, and she laughs in a way that kind of scares me sometimes. Yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking, you're getting ideas here, but I,
I tell you something weird. I had some folks over not long ago, and one of my hobbies is I communicate with some serial killers, pretty notable ones. They're either waiting on execution or waiting for their life sentence to terminate when they become deceased. And one in particular is the BTK killer. Okay. And Dennis Rader is a very fascinating person to me because he held some, I call them minor positions of authority. And minor position of authority is he worked for code compliance for a city. So he was out and about in plain sight. Okay. Killed for 3 decades. He was also a Cub Scout leader. He was also the president of his church. He was a guy that, kind of looked like, an upstanding person. And what his end, and I communicate with him. I've got tons of letters from him. And what's crazy about that is they did everything in plain sight. Okay. Everything he did was in plain sight. He was hiding in plain sight. And the one thing that caught him up was he liked taunting the police, and he liked taunting the investigators on the news. And he used remember the old floppy disk that you put in a computer?
Mhm.
He mailed that. He typed on it, mailed it to the police department, kind of taunting them. And there's just enough in there to begin to narrow a search somewhere. And that's what got him. And, it took 34 years, I think it was. And I mean, we're on track right now, 34 years, a little
Yeah.
over actually. Uh, but you look at something like that, you think, man, why hasn't justice been served? And I think in this case, honestly think there's enough people that have made the appropriate notes at the sheriff's department of inappropriate conduct or had knowledge of certain investigators sleeping, having a sexual relationship with the mother, that they knew that if they tried to prosecute it back then, all these guys are going to be complicit to a murder or, tampering with the evidence is what it would be.
Yeah.
And they would have been arrested. So I think there's no better time than now for this case to really move forward because, Chief LaPena, he's a young guy. He wasn't even, he might not even been born when that happened,
Yeah,
maybe
no
just
doubt.
born. But there's enough people that have been washed out by, natural issues that I would love to see this case. There's still some folks that have retired that are alive that know about this case, especially in Bedford. But I would like to see that thing come to fruition. And maybe after this podcast is populated, I'll send the good chief just this, copy of the podcast and say, man, I'd really like for you to move on this because, that can be an embarrassing, film that we put out for law enforcement. And, I like to say it like this. I support good law enforcement. I support law enforcement. I support the blue line when they're doing the right thing. When they're not doing the right thing, I do not support that. And I'll be the first advocate to stand up and say, that's absolutely wrong.
Yeah. There's a guy here, a local police officer here that I got to be friends with. And he and I were talking one day and he said, it's a fine line between being a good person or a really bad person, or you could be, it's a fine line between being like a cop or being, a burglar or a murderer or anything like that. And he said, it's just, and, I've even had, people say that, just like you, well, I look at it like this. Do you think that maybe the sheriff's department up there was maybe pushing back on this to save themselves the embarrassment?
Yes, 100%.
Is that okay?
And that's what Mike Utley was telling me. He's like, look, I'm getting so much pushback. That administration's gone. Okay.
Mhm.
So Sheriff Wayburn, he's in charge now. I would love to see this case, and once it populates, I'll send a copy of this to the good sheriff. Again, I absolutely support 100% law enforcement when they're doing the right thing. But if there's any cover up involved, I'll be the first one to point it out and say, that's not right. That's not right.
Yeah, because after you had told me, because I didn't know this for a long time, then you told me one time about her mother doing what she did, and I went, and then I got to thinking, well, shit, they're burying this right now because they're trying to protect everybody that was involved in that mess.
That's right.
And I know that after it happened, I remember she told me that they went to Mexico for a while. Didn't they check themselves into a mental institute for a little while too?
It's like a very short time. Yeah.
I thought, but I think that's what got everybody kind of backed off of them because they did that. And then they went to Mexico and then they came back and there was just over the time that we were together, she would just mention things. I was like going, wait, what? And what the hell were you doing there? And why was this and that? And then when the whole thing came out, then it all made sense. I said, okay, I get all of it now.
Yeah.
But, why would you just pack up and go, hey, let's move to Mexico? Well, no, you don't do that, but unless, I've got a friend that did that, but he's home now.
Listen, if you're going to do some shit, you got to go to a country that doesn't extradite. Okay. Because they can't just come get you. Do a little research. You got to go a little further than cross that line,
Yeah. Can't go down to Tijuana and hide. You're going to have to do something. So, but it was just such a twisted story. And as the investigators were just bringing it all to life to me and I was seeing it and I was going, it was like going, shit. Because there was times you think in your mind, please tell me she was just jacking with me. She was lying. She made this up. She did. And she was not, she spilled the beans, but when you carry that guilt around with you as long as that, just me knowing about it really bugged me.
That's how that's affected your life.
Yeah. And that's why I came out to you, because you being an officer and you being my friend, I was like, well, man, I gotta talk to somebody about this. And I figured you were probably the safest one I could talk to. And then what you did, you recorded everything as my protection. But it was just so surreal. And then, I think I look back on it now, and like you said, you're still, everybody's gone except the one person. The one person that matters the most is the one that had the finger on the trigger. And, where are we at now? Same place we were at when we started this shit.
I'm smoking on my garage. You're doing a podcast from where you, Cleburne? And
Yeah.
we're literally I mean, think about this. So 25, 35, 37 years after that murder happened, we're sitting here talking about why there's no justice. And we see the complicit part of law enforcement, especially from some of the investigators where they got in the cookie jar. Okay. They're all gone. There's absolutely no reason why. I mean, this thing should have been prosecuted a long time ago. It should go to the grand jury. And matter of fact, you know who else I'm going to send this to? Once this populates, I'm going to send it to 3 people. I'm going to send it to Sheriff Wayburn. I'm going to send it to the Bedford Chief LaPenta. I'm going to send it to I think he's in his first or second term now, the DA's office. I'm going to send it to the DA. And I'm going to let them know, look, if you guys don't let me know that you're going to do something pretty active on this, I'm going to do something very, very active. And I will name there's a group of investigators that this will bring some great shame to their name and really tarnish some images. You guys are going to I'm going to give you the opportunity to get ahead of this. So if you want to get this thing before the DA's office, Phil Sorrells, elected district attorney, that would be, because that was the last investigator you talked to from the DA's office under a previous administration.
Mhm.
I will say, I'm going to save you guys a lot of headache. I won't type up one thing one time, but if you choose not to, then we'll start going down that road. And it's easier if they get out ahead of something, and they've had 37 years to do it. Okay.
Well,
They've
yeah.
had 38 years, whatever. They've had plenty of time to get out ahead of it. Everybody's deceased now. And at the end of the day, let's get some justice for the one person that's still alive from the events of that day, that determined the events of that day. And remember, the 2 guys that were there, they weren't hired help. They were lovers of the mother. They
Mhm.
were lovers, they were lovers. So
Yeah.
imagine, if you're in that fueled up relationship, that person calls you, hey, I need you to come over and take care of something. I'm on my way, because you know what they know? About to be a cookie jar. And there's nothing better than a crazy cookie jar, apparently, even the investigators.
She must have been some fine piece of ass, I'm telling you what, because she pretty much
Might have
drug
spoke
everybody into
Spanish.
it. You what?
That thing might have spoke Spanish down there or something. I don't know.
Shit.
I can't imagine putting my career on the line. I can't imagine especially my previous life as a police officer. I can't imagine putting my career on the line, much less my life and liberty. Family's important to me. Oh, you're not going to get to see your kids again because you were complicit in this, and you're going to serve 10 years in TDC. Ah, fuck. Over that? No,
Yeah, because you
absolutely
were
not. When you start tampering with evidence, and that's what that was, tampering with evidence and doing some other stuff. Yeah, you're going to get 10 years just for tampering with it, because it's a capital murder case. Might get more. Might really make you the poster boy for this deal. But I think it should get some attention. I look forward to you populating this, because I'm going to share it to the ones that need to know. But Joe Johnson, regardless of what a person does in life. Now, when I say that, his was a monetary crime. He could not pay back. You realize he didn't go out and physically hurt nobody. Physically,
right.
he did not hurt a person. He was in debt to the underworld, if you will. And back then, the mob was, ruled with the tight fist hand, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, he didn't hurt his wife, daughter. He didn't hurt anybody. Now, he might have hurt them emotionally. Man, that's different. He didn't physically attack, hurt anybody.
Yeah.
And what his crime was a morality crime. Okay. Now, if we're going to start prosecuting people for the morality crime, we're fucked. We're all fucked.
Yeah, we're all
Because
shot.
because you're not going to, me and you don't live exactly the same, nor does my next door neighbor. And sometimes you get a real shocker like the Johnson household, where they're fucking balls to the wall, literally. But this is a crime where a family member literally executed their father after a horrible, horrible aggravated assault with a deadly weapon times 3. Okay. And he ended up paying with it was his life. Then they took him out to a railroad track and they burned him. When I looked at those pictures back then, I said, God damn, nobody needs to go out like this, because he didn't physically hurt somebody. Okay. What he did was all a financial instrument owing the mob. That was it.
Mhm.
That was absolutely it. He never physically hurt somebody. And for someone to take that person's life in the manner in which they did,
Oh,
I
it was
think is,
horrible.
yeah, I think
I mean, it
it's,
was horrible because she ran it down to a T, and I was just thinking, what the hell did he do to deserve all this?
yeah.
I know that I know that the mom and dad had split up or something, and he was distraught about it. And when she said she wanted to come over and talk to him, he was just all open to it. Yes, come on, let's talk and then all this other stuff happens, and I thought, and I'm kind of like you, but he didn't deserve any of that. Why? I mean, what did he
I
do?
think that me and you can agree. There's some horrible people that have done horrible crimes to other people physically, hurting it. I have no problem that they die a horrible death, but
Mhm.
this guy did not deserve to die the way he died. It was a
No.
financial crime and an embarrassing crime, a morality issue at home, if there is such a thing in that type of a household. But he was embarrassed. And yeah, you're right. Whenever they called and said, "Hey, we want you to come over," he was thinking he was going to get his house back, his life back,
Yeah.
his family back. And he already knew, I mean, you have to assume he already knew that. I mean, he had to do all these horrible things, and they, the mob says, "Hey, you're going to take this picture. You put his in your mouth and smile at the camera." When those type pictures start getting sent to your neighbors and family, and that's probably one of the nicer photos that got sent.
Yeah. See,
Just saying,
I didn't see any of that stuff. They didn't bring any of that stuff out.
it's
And they
fucking
did
disturbing, man.
they said it they did say they were very disturbing. They said he was and I think she even told me that at one time that he was kind of a
Deviant.
sexual deviant anyway, but he'd like to be, he was a cross dresser and he liked this and like that and yada yada. And I was like, going, okay, I don't need to know all that. That's his personal life, and I'm not going to delve into that. And then when the investigator said, "Oh no," when I told him what I heard, and they said, "No, it goes so much further than that." And he goes, "We've got pictures." He says, "We're not showing you any of those." But yet they didn't have any problems pulling out the pictures of where they found his burned up body and, and showed me all that shit. But it was like, but that didn't bother me, but I don't think I would want to see those other pictures that the mob was passing around
Yeah.
because,
Well, and I think whenever I'm looking at those pictures, I'm thinking, holy fuck, this is a mob. And remember, photocopies were, that was cutting edge back then to have a photocopy of something.
mhm.
And there were photocopies along with someone had to develop these pictures. It's not like it is now. You can't just still print them off back then. You had to take them to somewhere, and so they probably had their own somewhere. Whether they pay the lab off, hey, print this shit, no problem. You're the mob. Now ain't no problem. Maybe pinch you 3 copies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because that got a warning problem with whoever they are. But things have changed so much over the years, uh, and I do think the law enforcement side of it, I like that. The only thing that I do like about this situation is most of the folks in law enforcement now would have just been born or maybe just a child at that time,
Yeah.
that
Oh,
are
yeah.
actually in law enforcement, now.
Mhm.
So, I think my hope and my prayer would be justice to be served for him. Um, and it's got to be eating the trigger person up. It would have to. It would have to, because one of the projects that I do with all the serial killers and all that is I would like to get inside of their mind and basically peel the onion.
Mhm.
And when I asked a BTK killer, when I said, "Dennis, let's talk about the Sotero family." Well, that's one that really bothers him. Okay, because remember, he still has some type somewhere in him. He still has something that says, "Boy, that was one I really shouldn't have done." And I killed him, her, and the children, and he didn't realize that the husband was going to be home. And even to the worst of the worst that I have communicated with over the years, they even have some. Now there ain't much there because they still killed them, but they still have something that says, "Man, I wish I wouldn't have done that one." He's told me that. I wish I wouldn't have done that particular one. And so I do think, regardless of who you are committing crimes, whether it's a low level crime or a high crime, out of all the people I've talked to over my career and since that I started writing, it's weird. Uh, all but one seem to have some type of a weird moral compass that it's way back in their brain, but it still bothers them. They physically said, "Hey, this bothers me. I wish I wouldn't have done this one." Now they don't really say anything else about the rest of them. But I said, let's talk about any of them that bother you.
Yeah.
And every one that I've ever talked to, there's always one. So
Well, yeah, I mean, they're, even though they're demonic I guess in a sense, you would say there is some sense of humanity in them. And there's, like you said, there's got to be something that bothered them.
mhm.
And it was like with her, I knew, I could tell that when she broke down, the way she broke down and went through all this, that it bothered her. And I knew that and it was almost like she was just wanted just get this out. I want to get this off my chest. What a chest. But anyway, she wanted to get it off her chest, and she wanted to, and I think even after it was all said and done, because after that night, we never discussed anything again about any of it. We never brought that up again. But we weren't
She
together.
probably had never told anybody, Gavin.
She probably hadn't, and I don't know why I got to be the lucky one that got to hear about it. And I got called in one time for I had to go and meet with an attorney one time and talk to him about an accident that happened out here by the house or something. It was a friend of mine was involved, and they subpoenaed me to come talk to him about it because my neighbor was one of the guys that was in the accident. And so they subpoenaed me to go in, and the first thing the attorney asked me, he goes, "Well, have you ever been subpoenaed before?" And I said, "Yes, I have." And they go, "For what?" And I said, "For murder." And everybody stopped and looked at me. And I went, "Hold on just a minute before we go any further, that it was something that I heard. It was nothing that I did. I never saw anything. It was something that and so then we just went all past that, but
Boy, talk about make a room quiet, huh?
Yes, it did. And because, the people that were involved, that were, my neighbor was the one that was in the mess, but it was another friend of mine that was in the wreck also. And it was their attorney that subpoenaed me. And I said, of course I'll go, because my neighbor was in the wrong when it was the accident. He had one of those little crotch rockets, and he used to ride up and down the highway out here at, 120 miles an hour all the time.
Yeah.
And he just happened to be coming home one night, and somebody pulled out of the driveway and didn't see him coming. And
did he make it?
Yeah, he made it, but I think they said they lost him like 3 times before just getting him out of there. And it was a friend of mine. It was his son was the one that was in the accident. And I told him, and I looked at him, I said, "This is not your fault, because when you pulled out and you saw that headlight of that motorcycle way down that road and coming up over that hill, and you pulled out, you thought, I've got this," but not knowing that he's going probably 120, 130 miles an hour, and that gap's going to close really fast. But I said, you did not know that. And I told him, because he was really distraught about the whole thing. And I said, "This is not your fault. That's his fault." And I said, and I mean, when he hit that truck, he hit the backside of that truck, and he was in a 3/4 ton Ford truck, and he knocked the back axle out from underneath that truck. He hit him so hard.
That's scary.
And I went down there the next day because I got a call from my friend. He was out of town. And he goes, "Can you go check on the family?" And I said, "What's up?" And he told me, I said, "Yeah, I'll go right now." They were like 2 minutes down the road. And I went down there, and there was still motorcycle parts and shit everywhere. And just, it was a mess. And they had just gotten home, and I talked to him, and he was just a high school kid. And I just told him, I said, "This is not your fault. Do not beat yourself up about this. This is his fault, because he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing was wrong." And he said, and he knew that going that fast, you're going to get an accident. Shit's going to happen. And I said, he knew that too. And I said, "So do not beat yourself up about it." But Oh my God. And he goes, well, come on, I'll help. I said, I'm going to go out and clean the yard. He goes, I'm going to come help you. And I said, nope, you just go in the house. I don't want you anywhere near it. You don't need to be around it. So
Yeah.
Tracy and I went out through the yard and we just started picking crap up and throwing it in the back of my truck and just getting that shit out of there, get that out of there. And there's some days when I would like to pick up this story that we're talking about, throw it in the back of the truck too. But, and I know that if anything ever comes of this, I know they're going to come back at me.
Sure.
They're going to come back at me. And so, I mean, I'm ready for that. I'm not worried about that at all. I just don't want her coming back at me because.
Yeah. And look, she would be the same age as me. I'm 58. I'll be 59 next month. It's weird, the different stages of life, that we go through. You knew me when I was a real, hell on wheel guy, right? Pedal to the metal. And as we get older, we slow down. I try to stay pretty busy, but there's a part of me, like, my emotions are different as I've gotten older.
Oh yeah.
Me and Lisa were talking the other night. She heard me on the phone, and my client was telling me something pretty heavy. Whenever I was off the phone, I told Lisa, I said, when I die, I don't know who's going to get these phone calls, but I mean, they're horrible. There's no sunshine. If you're a private investigator, there is no sunshine. It's always a fucking problem. The group and crowd that I attract, I get it all. And I told my wife, I said, man, it's kind of too much. And as I get older, I've kind of thought about just retiring and just doing my philanthropy stuff because, man, this other shit's getting to be it's too much.
It does. It gets to be a lot. And I think in the beginning, it kind of pissed me off when she told me. It was like, why me?
Yes.
And now I got to carry
what
this.
Makes
around.
me the chosen one.
Yeah. And was I that good? Maybe I was. I don't know.
Apparently.
But, hey, I'm not going to pat myself on the back or anything.
You should have known this. You should have known this. Only serve it up about 30% when you're young. We need to tell all the men, only serve it up about 30% because you were probably serving it up 100%. And look where it got you.
Yeah, I mean,
serve it up 30%. Shit. They'll love you. They'll love you if you do 30%.
I should have kept it at about 15. Jesus.
Yeah.
Because that was
coming back.
Oh my God. It was and I have, and I try not to think about it much, but it sometimes it does come up and Tracy and I'll talk about it or something, and she'll ask me, she goes, well, has anything ever come of it? And I said, no, nothing's, And then, of course, when you told me that Mama had gone and she had serviced just pretty much in the whole damn sheriff's department up there, that I thought she got a hold of Eric too. She got a hold of the love man.
Didn't get a hold of me.
Mr. LeBear.
Boy, the good old days. But you know what's funny? I mean, like, really think about your life. You've worked in some fun and interesting jobs over the years, right?
Uh-huh.
Your career has had some fun. We've both met some really incredible people, but we've heard a lot of stories. We lived through a lot of stories. And I sometimes wonder too, what makes me a person that has to hear this and can be the information you gave is quite instrumental, but why did it not go any further? Well, we found out why. And that's disappointing to think, wait a minute, I thought the boys and girls in blue over here were supposed to take care of, well, apparently they were taking care of some business. They were taking care of the wrong business. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's disappointing.
Yeah.
It's fucking disappointing.
When you told me that, when you told me that she was just, taking care of everybody, all the investigators and everything, and I went, damn. She was determined, but didn't you say she's gone now too, right?
Yeah. The mother passed. Whenever I went back and looked at the whole schematic of people, I'm like, check marked by everybody that's dead. It's all check marks except one. And I think that that's going to be the checkmate at some point. And I think that this podcast could be instrumental in maybe pushing something along because things are different from the positions we previously held. You have quite a microphone, right? You have quite a platform to do something with. I happen to know a whole lot of people now, a lot more than I did back then. And, when those circles start closing at a later portion of life, sometimes maybe that's the way it was meant to be. Okay. I don't know why it happens like that, but maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. I don't know.
There's some podcasts that I follow that because I'm not the one. I don't want to talk about politics and I don't want to talk about religion. Those are just I just leave those out of the mix. But I'll go to on some podcasts and I'll listen to things, and these guys, they stir up some shit that brings attention pretty quick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I like Joe Rogan. I've got nothing but respect for him because the guy he's a machine, and when he talks, people listen and they listen very carefully. And I listen to him a lot, and I'll go, wow, I never thought about that. But they get into a lot of political stuff, which is nothing wrong. It works for them. That's great for me. I just felt like it was that dead horse had just been beaten for so long, and I thought, I just don't want to get into it.
Can't listen to the political stuff anymore. And
no.
You know what a knucklehead I am. Putting those limos together that I did that had presidential limos with one. I did a couple of those. I sold them. I made great money. So I am a good businessman. But it's whatever's popular at the moment. I thought that would have been fun to do. It was. But man, politics and religion will get you killed quicker than anything, whether it's a political career, a personal career. And I really don't give two shits about it. I just don't give two shits, especially the older you get. You know what I want? I don't care what religion you are. I know some folks that are Hindu. I know a lot of different people. And everybody that I know wants the same thing. Now, not to say there's not some rogue idiots on every side.
Oh,
but
yeah.
You know what? I want to live in pretty good health, although I'm smoking like a freight train talking to you. But I want to live, a quiet, fun, peaceful life. I want the best for my kids, my friends. And the majority of people want that. Not everybody wants that. And that's, I think when you're a little kid, you think, oh, I'm a little kid. When I grow up, everybody's smart. And then you grow up and realize everybody's a fucking idiot.
But
a bunch of
dumb
real
as a
dumb
bag
shit.
of hammers is what they are.
Yeah, dumb shit. And so I do think that that's one thing that, that is alive and well. There's a lot of people, I wonder how they even breathe. I mean, they're that fucking stupid. I wonder, how does this guy even breathe? Because he's so wrapped up in whatever it is. And whether it's, too much of anything is bad. I'm just going to accept money. Too much religion makes you one of those fucking people, I'd like to go over and have tea with Jim next door or, Doug over here on the other side. They're both very normal people. If one of them was real far on the other, either one, I'm not doing it. I like just enough, just enough. I don't like the extreme shit at all, especially the older you get.
Yeah, it got to the point to where I was, just on, on Facebook, and I'm not even on it that much anymore. I still post and let people know when the new podcasts are up and stuff, but I quit looking at it, a lot of it, because it was just everybody was too politically motivated, and I was thinking, let it go.
Yeah.
I mean, just let it go. I lived through the Nixon era. That was pretty shitty back then. And
but I'm gonna tell you something crazy. Talking to a kid that knows nothing. Okay, he's a very young kid, but he wants to be a historian. I said, well, you realize you're gonna be poor. I want to put this in perspective. And what I mean by that is, unless you just really get lucky and write you a book out of the gate, if you want to do certain sectors, so my friend said, hey, come over and talk to my son because he wants to have a lot of money, but he wants to be a fucking historian. I said, okay, I'll come talk to him. So I go over and talk to him, and he starts telling me, and he's pretty sharp. Okay. And it's very, he's from a 15-year-old mindset. He reads a lot. He's kind of a geek, but he's fucking smart, and he's real personable. And he said, I got to tell you, out of all the presidents that were president before me, he said, the one I liked the most that I think did the best for the country was Richard Nixon. And I said, okay, tell me why. And he started telling me, because I thought pretty highly of Richard Nixon myself. Okay. And reading back in history. And this kid's pretty, I said, listen, you're going to need to write a book because you're not going to live in Colleyville. Okay. A historian doesn't live in Colleyville. A historian lives in an apartment somewhere, and you're going to eat oatmeal. That's about how it's going to work. And of course, we started laughing. He goes, "No, I realize that there's no money in this. It's just more of a hobby." Well, his dad thought that he was going to, you know, go get a philosophy degree and be a philosopher. Well, philosophers are dead. They're all in the Bible, right? I mean, you start talking about, I want to get a philosophy degree. Oh boy, you're about to waste a shit ton of money, son.
Yeah, no doubt.
Jeez.
You better learn HVAC is what you better do.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It, so like even just talking about education alone, boy, you can open up Pandora's box
Oh
in
God,
2
yes.
seconds. And boy, you can make some people really mad in 2 seconds. And not everybody needs to go to college.
No.
I can certainly tell you that you can still make a lot of money. I never had 1 hour of college. I did just fine. But, think about these kids. I always started talking to my kids in 7th grade. You better figure out what you want to do. Better figure out what you want to do, because as soon as you graduate, you're an adult. You got to figure, you got to have some ideas and talk to some people that do that for a living. See if it's something you want to do.
Well, I mean, your kids did well.
They thought they were going to be
What?
homeless. I told them, when you graduate, you got 10 days. I'm telling you. I think, my ex-wife used to say, "Oh, you're so mean. What a dick." I said, "Just trust me, they're going to be fine." Gabby got real good at volleyball real quick, full ride scholarship. She's doing wonderful. Chase went straight into the Army. He's doing wonderful. But, if you don't let your kids do some problem solving on their own, you're going to have you noticed how many people are having Rob Reiner? Okay. You know what I'm talking about? Rob Reiner and his wife murdered by their 34-year-old son.
Yeah.
Have you seen the other cases that are all here local or within our geographic area? There's a guy that killed his wife, shot her, I think, daughter in the face. Everybody's shooting everybody in the face. There's been 3 cases in the last 48 hours. There's one in Florida where the guy got mad watching the 49er game and he executed everybody and himself, but he's shooting them in the face. And I'm like, what the fuck has happened to society?
Well,
What has happened?
Having to watch the 49ers at any given time would make you want to do that. But, but that's still just, be kind of like watching a Cowboys game and make you want to pull your fingernails out with a pair of pliers. So, it's like, sorry.
I like placing bets. I bet on a lot of stuff out in Vegas. I bet on some odd stuff. So I bet Jimmy Carter, when he went into hospice, I said, that guy will be in hospice 2 years. That's what I thought. I thought they just put him there to, hopefully he'll pass away. I missed his death date by 7 days. I would have made $7,000 on it. I mean, I bet on some morbid stuff. I do. I bet on some stupid stuff, but you can bet on anything now.
Oh, I know.
You can bet on anything. And I think that our society is at a real odd place. And I'll tell you, artificial intelligence, have you messed with any of the Chat GPT apps, like with pictures? Have you done any of that yet?
No, I've kind of stayed away from all that shit. I don't know.
I want to encourage you to do something. Listen, I'm on the free one. I can only do 3 a day. Okay. I can do 3 pictures a day. Can't do videos, but I'm getting so good at my pictures. I can put a picture of, like last night, my dad likes wrestling and buckwheat wears me out all the time.
I saw that picture. You're such an asshole.
My dad called me and he said, "That's the greatest picture I've ever had taken of me." And I said, that's your face. He said, "Yeah, but these women don't know it." And he's 82. He's still trying to chase women. And he wants me to build him a dating profile. I said, "But Dad, if I put this picture up of you and they come over and they just see a sack of bones and a small or a medium shirt, whatever you're wearing, it don't matter. It got him here. The personality will do the rest." I said, "God."
That sounds like your dad. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an idiot. I fucking love him. I tell you what's funny, though. I'm going to encourage you to do something. So, like, I put a picture of my dog. Your texting is all you're doing. Chat GPT. I put a picture of my dog, and I said, put that bulldog, put the hat, and I put a picture of the hat next to him in a separate picture, just like a text. Put the hat on the bulldog, put him in heaven, a rainbow behind it, sitting next to Jesus Christ. In about 4 seconds, think. I said, no. Oh my God, I love this picture. What I like about that is I'm seeing it bring my dad some happiness. So I took an old picture of him. It's a project I'm doing right now. And it's an old picture of my mother. And there's no videos of them from back in the day. Chat GPT, take this person and this person, have them dancing at an Elvis concert. And guess what? It happens. It's fucking fascinating, dude. At first, I was worried about it, but as I've played with it a little bit, it's fucking one. I fucking love it, dude. I love it.
Yeah, I haven't really messed with it much because I don't know. I just looked like it was too involved and everything, but I may have to take a look at it now. That picture of your dad, that was funny. I saw that and I was looking at it going, what in the hell did
It
he do
looks fucking
now?
real, right? It looks so, and my dad is like over the moon. So like one of the things I've started doing, and I try to have a good, close relationship with my parents, right? And my mom, she's basically, she's married and she has a wonderful person taking care of her, but my dad doesn't have anybody. So that's why you probably see more of my dad. Okay. And it's funny by like these photos, like I got a real good one of him and I'm going to send it to him tonight. And he's kind of starting to look forward to in his mind, he can see that that's him. Now, in his mind, he thinks that he really is that picture. And it's cool for an older person. Let me ask you this. Have you gotten the meta glasses yet? Okay. Oh, wait, you got Asperger's or something, don't you?
No, I don't think so.
Well, so a lot of people that have Android phones have Asperger's.
Oh, shit.
You're an Asperger person.
Here we go with the Apple shit again.
No, listen, I'm going to tell you something wonderful. So these I can't take them out because then they'll Bluetooth in, but these Meta glasses, I'm going to get my dad a pair. They're a little bit pricey, but I think it's going to be good for him. But you can say, hey, Meta, what am I looking at? It don't matter what you're looking at. My wife was on the couch the other day and I said, hey, Meta, what am I looking at? And you can hear it go, takes a picture, and it says, there's a lady laying on the couch, a tan couch with a blue rug and a small white dog at her feet. It tells you. So I went to a building the other day, a federal building, and I said, hey, Meta, what am I looking at? You're looking at the Fort Worth Federal Courthouse, and it gives you the address. You can sit around, and you can hear it right here. You can sit around all day long. So the other night I had them put on. I said, hey, let me ask you a question. Now, my dad has no idea I'm recording. Let me ask you a question. Who's your favorite son? Oh, you. And it's funny because the perspective that you're getting it from, okay? You're not holding the camera up. You can't tell you're recording. And I let him get it all out, okay? And it's funny to me. I can see where these Meta glasses, my dad could just be sitting at home and say, hey, Meta, what's the population of China? And they'll tell you. Hey, Meta, tell me about Ford Motor Company. And then just, as long as you want to listen, it'll tell you about it. I think that that's good for especially older people. I do.
Yeah, I think it basically AI just kind of regurgitates what it finds on what it finds out on the internet. But it is, I see the good in it and I see the bad in it.
Oh yeah.
It's we've I've talked to friends in in the film industry and things and that's starting to AI starting to
It's starting to affect them, isn't it?
Yeah, it's starting to cause some problems. But Hollywood's falling apart anyway, and a lot of stuff is going overseas now. The friend of mine I talked to, she's a director of photography for that show on Netflix. It's Bridgerton, which I've never seen it.
Very
but
popular.
I heard it's very popular, and people that I've told that I've said I interviewed Alicia. She works on Bridgerton. They're like, on what? And I said, yeah. And they go, that's like probably one of the number one shows on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I said, I know nothing about it until she and I. And then when we she came on with me and we talked and, and she gave me the rundown, but I asked her, I said, what the hell's going on in Hollywood? And she just kind of laughed and she said, it's just, people are going overseas, all these damn game shows you see now,
Yeah.
like that game show, The Floor. They shoot that
Yeah.
one in Ireland.
Yeah.
What is it, that show, The Quiz with Balls? They shoot that in Australia.
Yeah.
And I thought, and so I read about the one about The Floor, and they said it was cheaper to take the 100 contestants and what crew they needed and put them
Yep.
up in Ireland, and it was cheaper to do that, to keep them there for however long it took, because they all had to stay there till it was done. It was probably
Yep.
like 30, 45 days.
Yep.
And it was still cheaper than doing it in California. And, she even kind of made the comment that, they would like to get out of there, but her husband's in the film industry also, and he's pretty entrenched in it as well. But, I told her, I said, well, they just built a massive studio up in north of Fort Worth,
Yes.
and that thing's huge. And I said, y'all just come out here. And I said, I said, you're a couple of Californians, I would say, come on to Texas. Now, most of them would say, no, keep your ass at home or go to Oklahoma or something. But I told her, I said, they've built that huge studio, and that Sheridan and Paramount built that damn thing.
Yeah.
But I just wish I just had a little bit, just maybe a third of what Sheridan makes on his shows. I was like, Jesus, Murphy.
You know what's funny though? I want you to think about this. It doesn't matter. I know, and you know that I know some very wealthy people. I know the wealthiest people in Fort Worth. I know Warren Buffett. I know a lot of really rich people. And you know what? Money. Now I've been poor too. I'm not saying money don't make you happy, because if you've never had any, and then finally get some, you're happy. So money is really the key to having your own success, whatever. But I know a lot of very, very wealthy people that are fucking miserable, man. Like they're
Yeah.
just fucking miserable. Miserable. Now I know a lot that are very happy too, but they do a lot of philanthropy. That's not, they don't hold it. They do other stuff for the community and at large, whatever. But I'll tell you this: there's a lot to be said for having whatever your own legacy is. And it doesn't have to be money, because money is just a fucking utility. Money is, we have to have it. Don't get me wrong. But I would rather have a very flexible, if I was a guy starting out, I would want to make sure somebody says, hey, because I learned this pretty quick. You're never going to get rich working for somebody else. Never. You're never going to get rich.
Well, that was my dad told me that. My bonus dad told me that forever. He said, he goes, you're never gonna make money working for somebody else.
You'll be comfortable. You'll be okay.
Yeah.
But you're never going to be rich. Okay. You're just not. And you got to hammer that to a kid at a young age. I mean, I did my kids. I said, listen, whatever you think you want to be when you grow up, you go look and see what their salary is right now, or find somebody that's doing that and see how they live, because that's exactly how you're going to live. And then the entrepreneur side really kicked into me in like 93, 94. And there's nothing greater than to build something and it's yours. Nobody can take it away from you. It doesn't matter I don't care if you have a lawn company. I'll tell you, service business is the money. Some type of deliverable. But the entrepreneurship, I see it growing 10, 50, 100%, much more than what it used to be. And I think that that's really great. I think that that's really, if you really want to be the wheel, you're not going to be the wheel sitting at a desk for somebody else.
No.
You're just not. You're not going to be, you're not going to be wealthy, but you can create wealth. And sometimes it's unconventional. I mean, I know some people that do some unconventional stuff that are wealthy, big time, like you, a podcaster. You got all that money. Last time I came down there, you were sitting there counting it out. I said, man, I got to become a podcaster.
I'm just swimming in it, I'll tell you.
Ain't nothing wrong with it. But, so I'll tell you something funny. Like the product that you make for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
That product, now, I go to China for the stuff that I throw out on the streets because it's, very, very cheap. Okay. But I come to you guys for like any celebrity stuff that I give them a hat. They get the good stuff. And that business alone, tag, you think about, I can send down an idea and guess who never disappoints me? Tag, because 100% I know that it's going to get done. I needed something that night when we were going to Washington, D.C., and I'm not a planner. And I said, man, it'd be neat to take this jacket. I'm telling Lisa, man, I'm gonna have to call. I'm gonna have to call and pull a favor in from Tracy. I call your wife. Hey, I love you. I want you to know that. She said, fucking, what do you want? Thank you, you silver tongued devil.
Yeah.
It's going to be on Netflix. Will you do this? She's like, fucking bring it down, you idiot. And, it's like relationships, deliverable. And I make no money with that. But you know what? I enjoy that. That's my hobby, doing that.
Well, it's just like this, I, never had any intentions of making any money off of this. It was just, the situation I'm in now, I'm here all the time. And so it's like, I needed to do something. And my cousin made the suggestion, he's a voiceover talent down in the Valley. And cause like me, he got laid off, because of COVID and he was with Motorola for over 20 years and they just dumped everybody one day. They just said, thank you, bye. And so he just went back to doing voiceover work. And of course I've had his daughter on with me as well. And she's a voice actor. She does a lot of animation stuff. She does like Barbie stuff and all that thing. But she has she has kind of a kid voice, and I always pick on her about that because Vanessa's got to be probably in her 30s now or close to it, I hope. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, Vanessa, but she still sounds like a little kid. But that is
But you
her
see,
niche.
I was just going to say, see, some people might say, oh man, I got a kid voice. When you find your niche, so that's like a blessing. I can work from home in my own studio.
Mhm.
I can do voiceover work. It's funny, and sometimes it takes a hard time to discover what your blessing is. I mean, I've always believed that. I've always believed that, sometimes, boy, something will come your way and you think, boy, this really sucks some shit. And then you go, wait a minute, I can make a living from my comfort of my own home doing this. This is incredible. So,
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've talked to a lot of people I haven't talked to in years, and it's just been kind of fun just dredging up old stuff and talking. And what's funny is I would say probably 90% of the people, I think this one will be number 24, I think. And I would say that 90% of them, somebody has to bring the den up always.
hell
That
yeah.
bar always comes up.
Hell yeah.
And a friend of mine, Doug Swansea, was on with me, and he said something that I had totally just spaced. And he said, "You know what your bar was?" And I said, and I've had to think about it for a minute. I went, "Oh yeah, I know where we're going with this." And you've got these people, these these companies that have all these vending machines, pool tables, jukeboxes, video games, all this shit. Well, what they do is they go build themselves a bar out of cinder blocks or whatever it is, put all their vending in it and all that shit, and they lease it out to somebody to run it. And I went, yep, that was me.
Guilty.
Guilty, because I had one of those. And it was at the time I wasn't even thinking about it. And I was like going, wait, why are you? Because the deal is that you get to keep all the alcohol sales and they get to keep all the vending money. Well, shit, the vending money that's good money right there. I mean, what
It's a
those pool
captive
tables,
audience.
yeah,
Yeah.
what those pool tables would brought in every month would pay for the rent and just all kinds of stuff. But I didn't get to touch any of that stuff. And I even brought in some other machines from a different person. And boy, I got shit for that. But
No,
it,
no, no, no,
yeah,
Gavin.
that's
No,
no.
no.
And because like he said, they're like the mob. And I said, oh, I know they are. They are exactly like the mob. You don't
Do
want
you
to piss
remember if
them
it
off.
was? Do you remember if it was city vending?
That was the question that came up. If somebody asked me if it was city vending, well, you know who the old guy was um, that I rented that place from was,
Yeah,
um, oh my God, was it Junior Allred? I think it was. Yeah,
I think it
because
was
he was
Junior.
yeah,
Yeah,
because Junior was partners with the bunch over at Cowboys. That was part
yeah,
of his too.
yeah,
And I'm sure that all those pool tables in there, and all that shit, that was all his stuff. I'm
yeah,
betting it was.
yeah. I think
But
it was.
yes, but my friend Doug asked me. He said City Vending did that, and I said I don't know if Junior was in with City Vending. I know he had a vending company, but I just don't remember what the name of it was. But I bet 100 to nothing because I went on their website, and right there it says, "Hey, you can run your own bar." Of course, they didn't have any available, but
But
there
you
were
could.
you could. And then and then I got to thinking about the outside, looking at the bar, looking at the den back the way it looked. It was a square box. That's all it was just a big box with the
Yep,
front entrance to it.
yep,
And you could go out the side and there was a little back courtyard back there in the back, but it was just a square box.
yep.
And he said they go in there and they put in shitty carpet, a bunch of, junky ass furniture and, whatever, and do all that.
But it's your bar.
But it's your bar.
Oh,
I thought,
good job.
and I thought, look at me, man. I'm hitting it big now.
Hey, the reason why I ask you that, when I was at the sheriff's department, I lived in a duplex lot, and I met the owners of the two on one side of me and two on the other side of me, and they said, "Hey, we live out of town. If you'll manage these and just make sure they pay you the rent to you." Back then everybody gave you a cashier's check or a check,
Mhm.
and everybody's going to pay the sheriff, and you're the one that gets to pick your neighbor. So it really worked for me. A girl had just went through a divorce, and these were pretty nice. Okay, these were pretty nice in North Richland Hills duplexes, and the girl that moved in, her mother came over and she said, "I'll be taking care of everything for my daughter." And she just went through a divorce, and her daughter was a cute girl, but her and her husband owned City Vending. Okay, so being the sheriff department, I know. Oh, City Vending, they're pretty popular in a lot of different arenas. Okay, and I'll never forget her mother. She said, "How much is the rent?" So I told her how much the rent. I want you to think about this. Rent back then was 500. I want to say it was $550 a month.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
It was much. Her
Mm.
mom literally writes out, it was what, 7 grand. Her mom writes out a check. She said that'll take care of it for the first year. Had never, and back then I'm thinking, holy shit, this person's rich. He was just able to pay that like it was nobody's business. Like I said, her daughter was a very nice girl. She had a little daughter, and they lived there a couple of years, but her mom would just drop me a check off once a year, pay for the whole year for them. But yeah, her parents owned City Vending. They lived over a pretty nice part of Fort Worth. Not They were very nice to me, but
Oh,
yeah,
so
City Vending.
you're lucky she didn't show up with a truckload of quarters and just dump them off to you
I
every
always
month.
thought that was so crazy. Back then, I thought about this not long ago. I paid 49,200 for a double duplex. Double duplex. Now that thing's worth 400 and I don't know, I looked up the other day on something and it was like 440,000. I was like, God, wish I would have held on to that all these years,
Oh, I know.
But geez, man, the
That's like,
money has changed.
it's just like my parents they had bought property up in Little Elm years ago, back in the early 90s, late 80s, early
There was nothing
90s.
up there.
No, and they were 5-acre plots that they were selling up there. And my bonus dad kept trying to go. He goes, "You need to come up and buy one of these lots." And I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to do with 5-acre lot in Little Elm, Texas? There's nothing up there, just a bunch of bunch of farmers and,
A bunch of
there's,
hillbillies.
yeah, it wasn't shit up there. And so I'd said no. Well, he bought two, and they lived on one of the 5-acre plots, and the other one was up by the main road that ran up through there. And so when he passed away, mom lived there on the 5 acres for maybe another year, and then she sold it and moved. They were selling those at the time. They sold those plots they were $5,000 an acre. So each plot cost you $25,000.
What did they sell for? Because she sold one recently. I got to know. Let me ask you a question. Is it over 100,000 an acre or close?
Oh shit. It went
Tell
so
me.
far beyond that.
That's what I'm saying.
She
You
didn't
fucking
even have,
idiot. You should have bought that back then.
well, yeah, now hindsight's 2020 now. I'm sitting there going, you dumb shit. You should have bought one of those. But no, it wasn't
lot.
quite the one that was on the main road there, because she kept that forever. And I kept telling her, I said, she would bitch about the taxes and this and that, and I got to make sure it's mowed all the time. And I said, Mom,
That's
just
what rich
sell it.
people do. They bitch about stuff.
I said, Mom, just get rid of it. She goes, no, hell no. She goes, I had it for this long. I'm going to keep it longer. And I said, okay. And never argued with her about it. And then the day came finally that, she said, I've had enough with this. I've had enough with Denton County. I'm sick of it. And just on and on and on. And I said, just get rid of it. And so she goes, all right, that's your job. She goes, get rid of it, sell it for me. And I said, okay. So we went through a couple of agents, and I finally found a guy that was, this guy that I found was, he was kind of ingenious about it, because not only would he sell the property, then he would go back to the owner and say, hey, look, we can build on there whatever you want to build on there. And then once they did that, then he became the property manager for it. And
Genius.
so, yeah, it was just a genius. And I kept telling him, I said, man, that is just a brilliant idea. And he goes, yeah, it's great. And I said, and I don't know, the acreage, when TxDOT went through there and they widened that road, they had to cut around the corner there, and it took off a piece of the property right there on the corner. And it wasn't much, but
Bet that little check cashed good, didn't it?
they didn't pay much for that one. I forget what they offered a foot, and they offered her something, and she said, no, you're going to pay me this. And they went around a little bit, but she wouldn't budge, and they decided to do it. But when they cut that corner of it, they cut more out of it than they said they were going to. And so she was
Your
like, well,
mom's a
hey,
bulldog, man. I'm telling you.
goes,
That's what I love about her.
she goes, hey, what about this extra you took? No, that's just, and no, she never got anything else out of that. But when she sold it,
Bet it was good.
she really has not much to worry about, to be honest with you. So she never did in the beginning, but
Yeah.
when that went, and then she just sold the 4 acres she was living on. She just sold that like couple weeks, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They finally finished that up, and she's already moved. She's moved next door now. But God, these dogs are going to drive me nuts.
You remember back in the old days, you'd always see, oh, get this lot at Cedar Creek Lake. They would send all kinds of, they still do, but now it's a lot more. I knew a guy that bought one of these lots at, I think, Cedar Creek Lake in about 1990, like when it was, I don't want to say new, but, newer. And he bought a lot, and then he would buy another lot. He ended up owning like 9 lots right in a row, okay? It was a little monthly payment, and why not? Let's just do it. He sold that fucking thing, and they made a peninsula, and a guy built a house. And I want to say these lots that he bought in the 90s, remember, that's way out there. It's way, all the way down 45 going to Huntsville. It's way out there. It looks like an ocean. I want to say he gave $3,500, $4,500 a lot, okay? And they're just shy of I think they're just shy of a half an acre, but they're right on the water. They're like, this is the water, this is it. It's on the water. And they're only half acres, but he bought 9 of them, okay? He sold that shit this last year. When he told me how much he got for it, I said, "Holy shit!" He said, "Yeah, me and my second ex-wife, she argued that she thought she should be a property owner down here." He's like, "Man, I bought all this way before you, and we don't even go down there and do anything." He said, "I never even camped on it. I just bought it because it was cheap." He sold all of those 9 lots and got over $1 million for it, hundreds of times the money. And he said, "Man, the best thing I ever did." And now, he's 58 and got $1 million.
Yeah, it's like
From
the
a
old man used to tell me that. He goes, "If you're gonna buy something," he goes, "buy land because they don't make any more of that."
and that's true. You know
And
what?
I
Talking about land, there was a guy that bought some shitty land up in Oklahoma. When I say shitty land, it was just there was a little shitty town right here, and he bought some land way over here. And I never could understand, why didn't you buy it in town? Because it wasn't farmland; it was more lots. Well, God kind of gave him a gift. As time went on, 25 years, they rerouted the main traffic from the main road. Instead of going through the town, kind of around it. You know how like they do a bypass? They
mhm.
put a Walmart right there. And they wanted, at that red light, they wanted his land for the Walmart. And they started dealing with somebody out of Bentonville. And I want to say he gave maybe 15,000 for this stuff back in the 90s. Nobody goes to this little town. Okay. Now they didn't put a super Walmart. They put like a neighborhood Walmart.
Yeah,
He got, I want to say 20 times his money on that. And he only held it 20 years. And one guy might say, "Oh, that's a long time." 20 times the money in 20 years. That's pretty freaking good. You can't get
yeah,
that. And
that's
that's a gift
that's good.
because you never would have thought that road was going to go that way.
Uh-uh. It's yeah, I don't know when they sold that lot up there in Little Elm. That was I don't know, I don't remember who it was. Some developer bought it, and and then I had heard that it was back up for sale again, but I don't know if they ever did anything with it or not. I haven't been up
Mm.
there since.
Boy,
It's
that
been
area
years.
has went crazy, man.
Last time I was up there, I went up there with her to just to check on the lot and everything, and we went and drove down through there, and I couldn't believe how much it had changed. I was like, it was just insane.
Million
All the
dollar homes everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
There
somebody
was
gave away $1 million homes up there.
there was where their lot was, if you crossed over, and that road that cut around there went up to 380. That goes into Denton, right? 380,
Yeah.
that goes into
Yeah.
Denton. Okay, well, that road went up to 380, and then you either went left or right.
Yeah.
And then they started building all that stuff up north, yep, up closer to 380, and then it started coming south, and it just kept moving, and so they just kept widening that road and kept widening that road, and I told my mom, I said, "When they get that done," I said, things are gonna change," and of course, then when, the, uh, the PGA moved their headquarters up into Frisco,
Yep.
and it was where their property was, it was only maybe 5 miles from there, 6 miles, and I told her, I said, "You're not gonna have any problem getting rid of it because they started building houses up around there, but if you crossed over that road, there was a guy that owned, I don't know how many acres he had over there, and he lived in this little crappy trailer, just
Yeah.
put a little it's like a little trailer home on there, and he lived out there for years,
Yeah.
but that was his, and when we were up there the last time and I saw the homes that they were building over there, and we went and we drove down through the neighborhood and checked it out,
Yeah.
and I couldn't believe it, and you're right, those were $1 million homes easily that they were building over there, and
There's
then
a,
the 5
okay.
acres that my folks lived on that they sold, they had a barn dominium on that, and whoever bought that went in and just completely just tore everything out, tore the building to everything, and we're building a brand new house back in there. So I was like, somebody had a lot of money, but, mom did okay with selling that property though. She's not hurting.
Yeah. I was going to say, I went to school with a guy in junior high, and him and his wife have it's pretty opulent. Okay. It's where you can go get married. What is that called?
An
Event
event
venue.
center? Yeah,
Oh
an event
boy.
center.
But it looks like a palatial mansion. And I can't think of the name of it, but his name's Brian Banner. And him and his wife have really done a wonderful job. I mean, and it's up there in Little Elm. And you come around this corner and you see this thing and you think, man, that's something. Then you realize what it is. It's a wedding venue and it's fabulous, but it matches what's up there now. It looks really, really nice. Really nice.
A lot of those places, there were a lot of those places that went broke. They're there for a while. They were popping up everywhere. People building these event centers for weddings and, crap like that. And
You
because
know
my
what
nephew,
gets those centers? When you start having people getting killed at your event venue, I mean, it sounds terrible, but you look at all these event venue places in, man, Grand Prairie, Arlington, parts of Dallas. Somebody's always they're so a lot of those type. Yeah, his model is very different. It's it's all the PGA players wanting to get married there. You know what I'm saying? It's
yeah,
different. Everybody has a different audience. The audience that I'm talking about is these strip shopping centers. Man, I won't go to a event venue if it's in a strip shopping. So I don't care how many cops are there. And it really depends on what part of town it's in because
yep.
some shit happening. Too old to be getting killed, making it this far, going to little Timmy's, fucking graduation. Oh, fuck Timmy. Send
No,
him a check.
yeah.
Stay alive.
Sorry, Timmy. Don't love you that much. So
I don't. Let me ask you a question. As you've gotten older, have you gotten softer in your heart?
no, I've gotten softer in my ass. Oh, I hate sitting in this
Yeah.
chair. I don't know. Yeah, I think I have because I've over the just in the past few years, some things I've run into that I handled it completely differently than I would have 30 years ago.
Right, right,
There would have been sometimes that have been like I would just rather just beat you senseless and didn't even sit here and argue with you about it.
right.
But now it's just like, well, first of all, I couldn't do it anymore anyway. I'm getting too damn old for that. But it's just it's just not worth it. It's like
Yeah, I think
I
about people. I think about people in prison. What because you can turn your crime, your story into something good. Everything can have a turning point. And there was one guy. It was back when I lived in the north part of Tarrant County. I had a guy banging on my door at 2 o'clock in the morning. He said, "Man, I know something." Kind of like me and you had that conversation. He said, "I know something. And I don't want to go to prison. I'm already on paper now." And he's banging on my door at 2 o'clock in the morning. Of course, I answer the door like this, fucking confidential informant. Yeah, and I knew this guy. What? We go outside, we sit, and he tells me, and I said, "Holy fuck." He said, "Yes, it's the breaking news that's on the news." I said, "Oh, shit." So I made some calls and I said, "Oh, boy, don't leave town. Don't leave town because they're going to hammer you." And long story short, I used to go into this little bagel shop at Western Center and Beach. And a guy would go in there. Now, this person is married, has children, has a fucking huge business. He starts messing around with the girl that is the owner there. Long story short, he kills this lady and her child because she says, "Hey, I need you to come over. I need to talk to you." So this worker takes his boss over and drops him off so he can go jogging around a track. Think how stupid this is, okay? You want me to pick you up? Yeah. When you're a subordinate employee and your boss tells you, "Hey, pick me up, take me over here, drop me off, and I'll have somebody pick me up later. I'm going to exercise." The guy did it, okay? He don't want any problems. Takes him over there. Well, the guy goes and jogs. Then he goes to a girlfriend's house and she said, "I'm pregnant." Well, they get in a fight. She wants money. He chokes her. He kills her. Wakes up the little boy in the next room. And Jaden comes in there and he's like, "Oh, this kid can't, he's got to have a mother." He kills this little kid, throws him in the back of her SUV, drives to Denton, buries him, up off of 35. It's the hottest news story because all of a sudden there's nobody, this person didn't show up to work. That's how it started. This is the most dependable mother, whatever. So it's hitting all the news story, missing person. Long story short, all of it comes to light. They arrest this guy, the guy that did it. I go to his trial. He's sentenced to death. And the judge says, "Before I sentence you to death, I would like to like to share one little fact with you. We have the DNA back from the pregnancy, and it was not your child. He killed a woman and her child, went and buried them. He ruined that whole family, killed these people, ruined that family, ruined his own personal family, ruined ruined everything. It wasn't even his kids. So I've always had, when I talk to these guys on death row, I like to give them an opportunity to, never fucking panic. This guy just panicked.
Yeah. It's just, to think that, you could do that to somebody just over something like that. But instead of sentencing him to death, they should have just given him life and then put him in the general population and let some of the enforcers in prison know what he did, because they don't
They
like
don't make it.
they don't like child killers and child molesters,
And it's
and
funny that you say that.
he wouldn't have lasted 6 months.
Funny you say that. Even in the criminal, institutionalized criminal penitentiaries, whether it's federal or state, uh, even those guys have a fucking, some of those guys, I'm going to say some, I'm going to say the majority of those guys have that moral compass where there's some things that they'll tolerate. They might look past, but boy, there's some things they won't. And if you got a bad jacket or bad paper, yeah, you're going to pay the price.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
going to fucking pay the price.
And I said,
Like,
and they would gladly take care of it for you too.
think about that young girl, that FedEx driver ran over that little girl up there in Wise County. He hadn't even been to trial yet. And he killed her. It's been 4 years.
Are they still digging around with that one?
He hadn't been to trial yet. Okay.
God.
And I've talked to some of the guys at the county, and they're like, he is the most highly protected, because everybody wants to kill that fucking guy. And I understand that.
Yeah.
I 100% understand that. And, kind of like what we talked about, some people, they kind of earn that position of death, however they end up. Joe did not. He never hurt a person.
No.
He might have hurt their emotions, their love, their feelings, might have did some bad things, but man, it was all moral stuff. It wasn't.
Yeah, that was like you said, it was more of a moral issue than anything else. I mean, he was just kind of twisted as far as his sexuality went, but hell, there's thousands of people that do that, but that doesn't mean you just need to go out and shoot them in the head for it, though. And
Well, I think the
still
beating that preceded the shooting, I think that God, that's bad enough. You're begging for your life, and then one of your own children that you created delivers it.
I know.
Yeah, we've got to get on Phil Sorrells, the Tarrant County District Attorney. We've got to get on Sheriff Bill Wayburn, and we've got to get on Chief Bobby LaPena to see if they can't make something happen on this case, because they should. They really, really should. The embarrassment part's gone. That will be, that would be a almost a side conversation, if that, at this point, because everybody's dead.
Yeah, because I was going to say, now the sheriff's department now could just say, look, those people involved are gone, and we've got a whole new team doing it, and but I can see where they were just pushing that back because they were just trying to save themselves the embarrassment of what was going on.
That'd be front page. That'd be front page.
I mean, I know Johnson County's got shit going on now with our sheriff down here, but who knows?
That's a weird deal in Johnson County. That's kind of a weird deal. Sometimes I'll always wonder. I had a guy talk to me one night about, somebody pulls the strings, and I said, well, I know who some of those string pullers are, and there's something behind the curtain. Me and you've talked about this. When you see a person, whether they're a politician or a person that's the subject of something, and you think, why aren't they doing that? They're probably not calling the shots, although they're in the position to call the shots. All those people that gave you money, and there's some dark stuff, they all pull some strings, man. They pull some strings, and boy, it kind of depends on what level you're looking at. But boy, some of these levels of string pulling will turn your fucking stomach, because they don't just target you. Remember, you're just the mouthpiece, but you've got all these people in your family. Some things can affect them. That's how they say it. this one guy pushed back on something one time, and I was in the room, and he said, I don't think I can do that. And he said, well, I think you should. The person said, I really think you should. And I think you should consider it, especially since your daughter goes to TCU and, she has a pretty tight schedule. And boy, if somebody starts talking to you about your daughter's schedule and some other shit, let me tell you something. You put yourself in a position to have to deal with that. There's no way I could tolerate that.
Yeah, they've got your attention when they do stuff like that. So, yeah, no doubt about it. So, and I don't, like I said, Tracy and I don't have kids, but I mean, I think of the friends that do, and you know, there there have been there have been things that have happened to some of my friends and ex-friends' children that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. But you know, but like you said, for him to be knocked off by one of his own children, that was, and I, it had to have been, I don't know. It's kind of hard, you're trying to think of, where is this person's mind right now
Yeah.
that they would do something like that. That's your flesh and blood. That's your parent. That's and I don't, from what I understood, I don't think they had any. I think the issues were between mom and dad. I don't think she had any issues
100%.
with him.
No,
And
100%. 100%.
and so then when we kind of we after we talked to the investigators and they kind of talked like, well, a lot of this was drug induced. I said, well, yeah, I could see that. And then finding out more that I found out later on about what she did and everything, then a lot, more of it came to fruition and said, well, maybe she was just so jacked up and she just wasn't in the right frame of mind when she did it. I
Yeah.
don't know,
I don't know.
but
I think
nobody.
we both agree she needs to answer for it.
Well, yeah, I think so, but it's just that's you're gonna be the button pusher on that one because I'll be hiding back here in the shadow somewhere. If you need me, my phone number is 888-555-3612. So that's if you need to get a hold of me, that's the number to call. So, but no, it's just when I'll let you know when I post up. It'll probably be tomorrow. It'll be up, but if you need a copy of everything, just holler at me and let me know, and I'll send one over to you. But because I know that you're good at pushing buttons and you know how to get people's attention, and when you put your mind to something, you get it done. So, with the exception of Mister Tiger King, but how's he
Man,
doing, by the way?
I talked to him last night for a little bit.
Mhm.
Man, I'll tell you something. He's 8 years into serving his 17 and a half. We got it reduced to 17 and a half. He's 8 years into serving it. And you know what? Let's just say something about this guy. Law enforcement will target people. I think we can all agree on that. I think different communities will agree on that, whether it's um, black, white, brown, Asian, whatever. Okay, so we can all agree that that's happened and does happen. A gay cowboy in Oklahoma this guy really figured it out. And what I mean by that is you can't ever pick a perfect client. Does he have his flaws? Sure. Who doesn't? We all do. Not everybody has the same lifestyle. But he did a lot of philanthropy in his own right for cleft palates, kids with smiles. He always, he had big Thanksgivings. He fed a lot of people in his own right. Joe is a good guy. Okay. Joe is a great guy.
You always said he was. So
Yeah. I've said it from the very beginning, and he was set up. There's a federal agent, a judge, and some other players that were on Tiger King that helped get him where he's at. Okay. With that said, I would love to see, he's halfway through his sentence. I would love to see him get out. I've got his passport upstairs in my desk. Told him, I said, we have an exit plan for you because he doesn't have anywhere to go. Well, we got an exit plan for him. We want to get him out. And, we thought during Christmas time might be the time. He's halfway through his sentence. It'd be a perfect candidate, just even a compassionate release. He has some health issues. Commute his sentence. I don't care what you do. Just would like to see him get out because I think a guy like him, although he's been done wrong, his heart is in the right place, and he just wants to keep doing good. And again, you can put my life under a microscope. We can put your life under a microscope. You're not always going to perform like everybody thinks you should. That's just everybody's an expert until they have to do it, right?
Yeah.
I do think once Joe's released, I think his main focus for the rest of his life will be doing philanthropy, be doing Kids with Smiles. That's something very important to him. And a lot of people don't know this. He was an Arlington resident. He was one of the first. He was the youngest uh, police chief in the state of Texas. Back in the so when we get off of this podcast, I want you to Google, was Joe Exotic or Joe Schriboval, however you want to do it. It'll come up either way. Was he a police chief in Texas? And it'll tell you police chiefs. He'll tell you his age, and it's fascinating because he owned a pet store in Arlington that a couple of my friends used to go to. And all this time passes. He goes to Oklahoma, becomes a Tiger King, becomes incarcerated. So he's been a Tarrant County resident before. He's a Tarrant County resident now because he's in the facility.
I was say, yeah, he's in jail up there.
Yeah, but I do think this. I think that as a person gets older, uh, we've learned some lessons, and we've learned some lessons at our own hand, and we've learned some lessons at other people's hands. And I think as you want to go out in life, you just want to make your legacy the best you can. I think he'll be a great candidate for that. I really do.
How old is he now?
Joe is right around my age.
Is he?
He's right
Well,
around.
he's not that old then.
Yeah,
He could, he could get out and still do
Still
stuff.
have a good life. He's married to a young guy named George. George has been since released. He's in Mexico, but I think this relationship for Joe is a good, healthy one because it's a supportive relationship. Where in the past, maybe some of his mates weren't quite as supportive, and he's had a little bit of trauma in here too because one of his husbands passed away at the zoo and at the hand of a firearm. And when you go back and look, he's had some trauma. He's done pretty good navigating life's road. He's a really fucking smart guy, and he's a creative guy. But when you peel the onion on Joe Exotic, I think that you learn something about a guy that if somebody wants a letter from him, and it's a kid, a granny, a person, that fucking guy will write the letter and he'll send it to them. And to them, all they see is somebody that was big on Netflix. Okay, they don't really realize the totality of his situation and where his life has brought him. But he's been really targeted in his lifetime, and I think he'll have a redemption when he gets out. I think he'll really have an opportunity.
I know that you guys have really worked hard, trying to get, you guys worked really hard to try to get him back when, I think was it Trump in his first term when all that happened, you guys tried to get him pardoned.
It'll be 6 years. Next month, it'll be 6 years.
Wow.
So he was in too when we got a hold of the case. And, I give a lot of thanks to my friendships and relationships with attorneys that they like doing projects with me because we're going to make it fun. And, we went all over the country and did some crazy stuff, bringing attention to Joe's situation. And we thought we had it. We were there at January 6th. We had a private jet wrapped. We bringing the attention of please sign this part. And then all the shit happened on January 6th. We knew we were fucked. We knew all of this was for nothing because there was so much, they shut down the city. There were, oh my God, it was an unreal situation to be in. It really, really was. And I knew at that point, I thought it's going to be tough. And, from January 6th through the swearing in of Biden, it was all about J6, and we knew we were done. So
yeah, they kind of killed it right there when all that happened. So
yeah, I don't quit, and that's one thing. If my heart's in it, I'm not going to quit. Do anything in the world for the guy. Have tried to be the best supporting person for Joe. Like I say, when he gets out, we got a place for him to go. We'll get him squared away, and I'd love to see it be sooner than later.
Well, hopefully it will be. Maybe it'll happen, soon enough to get him out. And because I thought it was when I heard about it all, and I thought that's kind of it sounded almost sounded pretty much trumped up is what it really sounded. It just didn't sound right at all. That there was a couple of people that were shady that were working around him, and
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 they've
I don't think
all, on video and affidavits, they all said they've lied. Now, you would think you could just run that down to the courthouse and get a release. It doesn't work like that. There's a fucking process for it, and it's not quick.
that's terrible.
It's
Yeah, because I
sad.
knew you told me that a bunch of them had admitted they lied about a bunch of stuff and
Yeah.
to get him in trouble, and I don't think that woman helped, and so it was quite a bit of crap going on with him, but
Yeah.
well, hopefully we'll get or you'll get something straightened out one of these days. Like I
hope.
said, I'll be waiting back here in the shadows when you need me. You just
Back there
holler.
pulling strings.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks for
Yeah.
having me on. As
Well,
always, I
thanks for
always
coming on,
enjoy
man.
it. I just now
I
realized you've captivated me for almost 3 hours now. What a dick.
No, it's only
We've been on here almost 3 hours,
no, it's been 2 hours and
45
15
minutes.
minutes. Nope, 15 minutes.
It feels like 3 hours.
I can see it counting right in front of me.
Okay. All right.
Eric, man, as always, brother, I appreciate you taking the time to come and visit with me. I just thought we needed to talk about the dark side a little bit,
Yeah.
and I hope this, and like I said, I'm here for you anytime, and I hope this will help you take it somewhere to another level. But now that, like you said, everybody's gone except the key player,
Main character.
and
Yeah.
yep, and it's like maybe something will come of it. But I know you'll be banging on somebody's door.
Well, whenever you populate this, also email it to me, because I'm going to send it straight to all three of those key players, and let's see if we can get some traction on it, because it's frustrating for sure. But I love you, man. Thanks for having me on. Okay.
Love you too, man. I really appreciate it. Hey, everybody. Again, I know you've seen it. If you get a chance, be sure to like and subscribe. And we are getting ready to get out of here. I got so much crap. I got to hire somebody to start doing all this crap for me, because I have to do all this stuff
Can't believe you
myself.
don't have somebody. You're so cheap.
I know I am. I'm cheap. I'm just a cheap ass. So
Get Tracy in there.
she wants nothing to do with it. Trust me. So but all right, brother. I'll talk to you soon. I've got did you email that stuff over to her?
I'm going to do it
Email
tonight.
that
I'm gonna do it
email that
tonight.
JPEG over to us so we can get that logo digitized.
I love you, man. Have a good night.
Love you too, everybody. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thanks for joining Epic Stage Journeys and then some. Stay well, and we'll see you down the road.